Terminator 2, Godfather 2, The Empire Strikes Back, Gremlins 2? I liked it. Anyway, every once in a while, every so often, every blue moon, there's a piece of art that surpasses its predecessor. Even though we loved it, every once in a while, it gets beat. It beats the sophomore slump. And today, we're going to talk about some albums from the world of R&B that surpass the great debuts. And some that probably should have been melted into goo, like the T-1000. What up, players? Thanks for that. Yeah. What is going on with this toothpaste I just used? It tastes like mint flavored thorns. Gervasia, what in the world? What up, y'all? Welcome to another edition of the Soul and Stereo Sessions here on YouTube. I'm your boy Edward, as always, giving you the highs and lows of the music world. But hold up, wait. Y'all know how it goes. Before we get going, I need you to do your boy one favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, go ahead and do it so that the algorithm gods will show favor upon us and can show this video some love. And then once it's done, make sure you share it with your people. You know it's going to be dope. Hook it up. We'll have fun today. So as we mentioned earlier, today we're going to be talking about sophomore albums that avoided the sophomore slump and a few that didn't quite make that over the hump. Unfortunately, they fell to the curse. But before we get started, let me just kind of put this reminder out here. I didn't want to go with the usual examples. There are some that we all know. You know, TLC's Crazy Sexy Cool, Mary's My Life, Boyz II Men's 2. These are great examples. Everybody knows them. I didn't want to bore y'all. I wanted to give y'all some that maybe you hadn't thought of. Maybe you didn't even realize were the debuts. But here are some albums that kind of buck that trend of the normalcy, and some albums that are very great sophomore efforts and eclipse the incredible debuts that they gave us. But you know me, just for the sake of shady, I also threw some in that weren't escaping the curse. We were cursed. So yes, today we're going to talk about sophomore gifts and sophomore curses. Let's get going. First up, our first sophomore gift is Brandy's Never Say Never. Look, y'all don't know what it is with Brandy and y'all on the internet. The internet is obsessed with Brandy. I love Brandy. Brandy is my age. I'm from the generation. I love her, but you say something bad about Brandy on these here apps, the stands are coming for you. I don't even know what they call them. What they call the Brandy stands, the brand flakes, whatever they are, they don't play. But in this case, I'll give them some love because Brandy's sophomore album was incredible. I was a huge fan of her debut. Those who know, those who were back in the day, back in 94 with me, doing the, y'all don't know that weird dance she was doing. Back then, we thought that she was on top of the world. If you got it, you got it. If you know that reference. But she was able to move beyond that with her sophomore album, with an album that was even more mature, even stronger vocally, and in my opinion, one that has defined her career. I know there have been debates about whether Full Moon or Never Say Never is her best work. If you ask your boy, it's Never Say Never. It's her best. And a definite sophomore gift. And our first sophomore curse goes to Tyrese Gibson, 2000 Watts. I'll say this, there's been a debate about what's Tyrese's best album. If you go to soulandstereo.com, you'll see I've ranked his whole discography. My favorite album by far is his debut. But you can make a strong argument, as I did on Soul and Stereo, that his best album was actually his most recent, Black Roses. So, that said, I can definitely argue that 2000 Watts was not as good as the debut. Not even close. I always had a little beef with this album because the title should have been super dope. Because if it dropped in 2000, or like, okay, the Watts native drops an album in 2000 Watts, but it ain't come out to 2001. So you messed up the title, homie. Along with that, the album itself just is okay. It's very much a product of its time. And at the end of the day, it's not horrid. I think he has worse albums, that Alter Ego album. There's probably worse material out there, but coming off of such a strong debut, this thing was faltering all over the place. 2001 Watts, that ain't it. Our next sophomore gift is Danielle Jones, Where I Wanna Be. I just say Where I Wanna Be, you probably just started singing the single, and there's a reason for that. Danielle Jones' debut, again, another set of albums I reviewed on soulandstereo.com. Go check those out. I've ranked them all. And I love his debut. I think it's very, very underrated, especially today. But there's a reason why people cling to this one so much. Where I Wanna Be is one of the dark horses of the late 90s era because there were so many great albums that dropped at that time. It almost got lost in the shuffle a little bit, even though we did get great singles. I feel like the project as a whole didn't get the love it deserved. And man, it is absolutely a gem. For those who are in the know, for R&B fans, this has almost become like an R&B cult classic in some circles. But it definitely beats the debut. A gift to us all. Thank you, Danielle. Even though Where I Wanna Be is still a shady, shady song. You're a shady man, Danielle. Our next curse is Avant, Ecstasy. Again, this album isn't horrible, but it's a tough act to follow because Avant's debut, in my opinion, is his best work. It's close. He's got some other ones that are really good, but this one, way off the rap when it comes to albums that kind of follow up to it. And it has good singles. I will give credit there. Don't say no, just say yes. Making Good Love is good. I'm a little tired of it. Y'all played it to death. Doing that weird dance in the back alley or wherever he was. I remember that. But no, the album itself as a package, take away those singles, it's really not much there. It does not have the consistency, the cohesiveness, or the strength that the debut gave us. It's just an album that came out in the 2000s and it has a couple decent singles. Kind of a disappointing follow-up. Not at all a bad follow-up. I've heard much worse albums in 2022. Trust your boy. But coming off of that strong debut that was going to set up a new R&B superstar for the 2000s, it was a little bit of a stumble. Our next sophomore gift is Anthony Hamilton, Coming From Where I'm From. And before you run in the comments, let me not let you be embarrassed when you're, well, actually, isn't that the debut? No, it ain't the debut. You're wrong, player. It's not the debut. His debut was actually a 1996 album called Ecstasy. And no, I'm not talking about the Avant album. No, there's same name. This one is 3 letters, not the word ecstasy. And Anthony Hamilton really came to prominence in 2003 with this album. So most people know it as his debut, but nope, it was his second time around. And for the second time around, it is by far his best. To me, that thing is this close to getting the coveted 5 stars from your boy. I mean, this close. And I love this album so much. If you think of Anthony Hamilton, I don't even have to tell you. You think of the raspy vocals. You think of the southernness. You think of cornbread, grits and cornbread, collard greens. What's the song, y'all? Cornbread, collard greens, something else in there that I'm missing. Is it grits? Maybe it's grits. Maybe I'm just hungry. It is breakfast time. But the point is, this album is just as southern and soulful and filled with gospel roots. And I absolutely adore it. It's one of those that again, got a little bit lost in the shuffle of the early 2000s because the sound was a little bit, it wasn't as commercial as what we were seeing from the Ushers and the Brandys and the Ashantis and everyone else who was dominating the charts at the time. But absolutely, R&B fans know how good this album is. Ecstasy is a not bad album itself, but there's no way it could follow up to the greatness of Coming From Where I'm From. Is it cornbread, grits, and collard greens? Lord have mercy. Our next sophomore curse, Ashanti Chapter 2. This album, let us pray. I'm talking like Anthony Hamilton. I'm back on food. Fish! It was cornbread, fish, and collard greens. I got excited. I just remember what it was. Anyway, let me get depressed and talk about Chapter 2. I know I have the reputation among some Ashanti fans of being an Ashanti hater, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. In 2002, I love me some Ashanti. Like, listen, I love me some Ashanti. Let me roll up on an award show. I might just get on my knee and propose right there. I loved some Ashanti back then. But something the 106 and Park generation doesn't realize that even though I loved her back then, as the saying goes, when I was a child, I thought like a child, but I'm an adult, and I can look back and see that those Ashanti songs were not that great at all. Her debut was fun. I think that the 106 and Park generation kind of overrates it a bit, but it's pretty solid. It's a solid album. I won't hate on it. This thing, though, oh no, this thing is the very opposite of solid. This thing is goo. This thing is mush. This thing is nothing. It's got, again, a couple of solid singles that you might remember, but the overall album, the tone is all over the place. The writing is just so weak and juvenile. I don't know if she wrote these songs when she was 8 and just decided to record them. I don't know what was up with that. Even the production is a little shoddy, and that's a little weird coming from that era when Irv Gotti had all of the hit makers at hand and he could kind of get this stuff going. So I don't know where things went wrong, even though I do love the Rock With You. Oh, baby. I love that song and a couple others on this. But if you love this album and you're a grown person paying bills, I promise you, you have not listened to it since 2004. Give it a listen now. Sorry for your nostalgia. And the next sophomore gift is my boys 112 with Room 112. I have long said, and it almost became a meme on the Soulback podcast. Shout out to I Got Soul, my brothers, that I have always put the 112 trilogy of albums up there among the best R&B albums of their era, and I still stand by it. I'm sorry you're mad. It's true. Because those first 2 albums, to me, 5 stars. That third album, very close to 5 stars. They knocked it out the park 3 times running. But when it comes to the second album, I have to give it the edge. It's very, very close. Very, very, very close to the debut. But I'm going to go with the second album as even overcoming that. The first album is great, but it's like 90% ballads. If you love ballads like me, it's all good. But there isn't the diversity there outside of a remix here or there that we get from Room 112, where we get the upbeat songs, we get the samples, we get the great guests who come through and collab. And then, of course, we get the bedroom burners and the ballads and the tear jerkers, and everything is all here in one package. When I think of a 112 release at their best, it is Room 112. Sophomore jinx, not at all. They killed it on the second go round. Oh, we're back to the curses. Next sophomore curse, Cisco Return of Dragon. If the sophomore jinx could be encapsulated in one album, it would be this. How you go from 5 stars to whatever I gave this, 3, 2, whatever I felt like that day. You got to remember the era, though. Cisco was coming off of the Drew Hill run, where he was singled out as the star. Then he had the solo record. And I know a lot of people just like thong to thong, thong, thong. Look beyond the thongs for once, unless it tastes like toothpaste like I had today. Ugh. Beyond that, his debut was incredible. Another album that your boy gives 5 stars. I'm just throwing the stars. I'm making it rain stars today in this post. But Return of Dragon. I don't know if he returned too soon. I don't know if there was a lack of focus in what he wanted to do with this album. But no, sir, this one did not work. I'll give him 2 songs. I'll give you 2. But beyond that, everything just feels like either cookie cutter Drew Hill that never made an original album or just generic 2000 club songs. This is not the man that we know and love and gave us those incredible albums before. Oh my goodness. This album is like, you know when you get like a bag of jelly beans and you're just mindlessly eating them and it's like, ooh, there's a red one, that's dope. And it's like, oh, here's a green one, that's dope. Oh, it's a yellow one, that's dope. And at some point there's a black jelly bean in there that you're not looking and you put it in your mouth, you're like, player, no. That's what happened when I put this album in because it's Cisco. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be dope. But I heard it, no, it did not work out. I am a huge Cisco fan. I'm a huge Drew Hill fan. And a fan of this one. And finally, we'll wrap up with one more sophomore gift. I'm going to go with J.E.'s J.E. Heartbreak. My boy's Jagged Edge. Jagged Edge's debut I thought was really, really good. But again, there was another album that despite the singles getting a lot of play, I don't feel like the actual album itself got a lot of love. And that album, oh, it's so great. Funny How, Wednesday Lover, there's so many great album cuts on that thing. Great solid album. But everyone who slept on the album the first time did not sleep on it the second time with J.E. Heartbreak. It's even more cohesive. It is even more strong. We got the strong singles. And the J.E. sound, y'all know the J.E. sound. Shout out to B. Cox, Brian Michael Cox, who was helping to develop that J.E. signature sound and tone that all their big hits had. That album is the definition of the J.E. sound. And we got it so much and so strongly here. One of the best albums of the early 2000s. I think it was actually 2000 when that dropped. And today it's still celebrated. It's the only reason why we keep giving them a chance after chance when they keep giving us those horrible auto-tuned wrecked albums. I don't want no Rodimus Prime sounding albums, player. Give me some J.E. Heartbreak. They did give us J.E. Heartbreak too, and that was good too. So maybe I'll get to that one another time. Maybe sequel albums will be the next video. But anyway, yes, J.E., you did it with J.E. Heartbreak. Alright, players, so that was 5 sophomore gifts, 4 sophomore curses. Ugh. Let us know what you thought down in the comments. Are there some other albums that you would consider sophomore gifts? I'm sure there are a ton. There were some I thought of. I just didn't want to add to the video. Maybe we'll do a part 2. In fact, we might do a part 2. Maybe I'll show my rap brothers some love and do something for them too. My brothers and sisters in the hip hop world. But in the meantime, let me know down in the comments, did you think that these albums that I named were actually better than the albums that came before it? Are you a Ashanti stan that's going to come to my house and stab me in the throat because I don't like Chapter 2? If you do that, I can tell you didn't listen to Chapter 2 since you were getting free lunch at school. That's the only way you would say that. But otherwise, go down in the comments and let's keep the combo going. And as always, this edition of the sessions is a wrap. Play on, players.